Modern Warfare has too much content for its own good. And what I mean by that is that a lot of its content is separate from the rest of the game. Ground War is its own separate thing, Gunfight is its own separate thing, 10v10 and 6v6, though have some slight crossovers, are mostly their own separate things. Hardcore mode, realism mode, and then on the opposite side of all of this, Spec Ops. There's a lot going on in Modern Warfare and not much of it connects. I personally like Modern Warfare, but I do think it would have been better if they just would have released the game with 6v6 and then Ground War, which would be 10v10, and then Spec Ops occasionally gets content, and then Gunfight could just be renamed as Face Off and could have multiple different types of game modes on those smaller maps. Sort of consolidating everything down, which would allow us to have some more room for other things like realism or the NVG mode, which I don't think I mentioned earlier. On top of this, they keep releasing temporary game modes, which are annoying to me because I don't want to get into them and then have them get removed in the next couple of weeks, and then I feel like I'm missing something. It's a weird thing with me, but I just don't like temporary content, but the content has to be temporary because if they kept stacking like more game modes on top of one another, the game would get too big. And even the combined player bases of PlayStation, Xbox, and PC wouldn't be able to fill every game mode. So, I would have made sure the game was a lot more consolidated, and that brings me into the main point of this video. I really don't want Battle Royale. Now, some of you might be thinking, boom, inherently, your point is flawed because a different dev studio like Raven would work on the Battle Royale, so you don't have to worry about it. I've seen this sentiment online and I have to completely disagree with it because the time and resources going into Battle Royale could just as easily go into the core multiplayer modes of Modern Warfare, regardless of what developer's working on it. All of these dev studios work under Activision, and if Activision is in charge of allocating resources, then no matter which dev team is handling it, time and money spent on Battle Royale is not time and money being spent on traditional multiplayer. The game is spread too thin. What's good about that is that everybody has a little bit of something. Some people just play 6v6, hardpoint domination, kill confirmed. Some people play hardcore modes or realism. Some people only play gunfight or shoot the ship playlist or the hardcore night vision playlist. That's where people can go. And some people I know just play Ground War or only enjoy Spec Ops with their friends and hate the multiplayer altogether. Yes, that sort of divides the player base, but at least the player base has a lot of things to choose from when it comes to how they want to have their Modern Warfare experience. I could play hours of Kill Confirmed, then get bored and go play Ground War, go from Ground War to Gunfight, go from Gunfight to Gun Game, and then I could go from Gun Game to Spec Ops to chill out for a bit, and then I could private match my buddies, and that's pretty great. That's a lot of content, there's a lot of things you can do in one play session with this one game. But that sort of all over the map game mode, game design philosophy is I think one of the things that holds back Modern Warfare from being a little bit more refined and a little bit more polished. And it makes people feel left out, because if they did an update that just added 4 new gunfight maps, I would feel kind of left out because I barely ever play gunfight, but whatever. I'll be excited when they add 6v6 and 10v10 maps, but some people hate 10v10, and either way, somebody's always feeling left out. Regardless, if Activision has a development team under them that's willing to work on a Battle Royale game and is given the time, money, and resources and everything needed to make that, couldn't they take that dev team, that money, those resources, put it towards better character customization, more 6v6 and 10v10 maps, more Ground War maps, more gunfight experiences? Maybe creating an NVG setting for every map in the game, including Ground War. That kind of stuff would be a lot of fun to me. Not to mention new weapons and field upgrades and attachments that they could be bringing into the game a lot faster if they don't have an entire dev team focusing, or at least a portion of a dev team, working on a Battle Royale mode, which, again, will simply just divide the player base more. Yes, some people are going to love it. Some people love Battle Royale. And some people, I've even heard them say they're waiting for a Battle Royale mode. But you might value Battle Royale more than something like Ground War or Gunfight, but some people only play Modern Warfare for Ground War or Gunfight. Battle Royale would just be another thing that a group of players comes to the game for, and took away money and resources from the rest of the game, making people feel left out. And I am of the firm belief that Call of Duty doesn't need to be everything. Now, I'm glad that if they were to add a Battle Royale, we still have a campaign, we still have a AI mode, with the Spec Ops, we still have traditional multiplayer, and then we also have some new things like Ground War. I'm glad that it wouldn't take away from the overall experience, it would just add an extra part to it. but it's an extra part, in my opinion, that just doesn't need to be there. Especially if it's just a giant map with parachuting in, and then a sort of storm-like system comes in and closes players closer together while they grab bandages and weapons and pieces of equipment or field upgrades or whatever. I'm sorry, we've seen this 100,000 times. And unlike traditional multiplayer, where it's sort of a staple of the genre, where you have like 6v6 domination or whatever, that is a staple of the genre, whereas Battle Royale has been beat to death very, very recently by many different companies, including the last Call of Duty game and the last Battlefield game. I don't want Battle Royale because I don't want players thinking that one of their experiences is being held back because time and resources aren't there for their mode, essentially meaning that when they see the new Battle Royale gets an update, they're going to wonder, okay, where's the update to my 6v6? Where's new content for the game that I purchased? Because at this point, we've created like 4 different versions of a game that everybody wants more content for, and that is going to spread the developers way too thin. And instead of making everybody a little happy occasionally, I think we could make everybody a lot happier more often if they just didn't focus any resources on yet another new separated game mode. Some people have even theorized there'll be a standalone free-to-play instead of something that just comes with Modern Warfare, and in my opinion, that's not any better, because again, a dev team directed by Activision is still having to put that together. Instead of that dev team making the current state of Modern Warfare better, we're just adding more bases instead of covering them at this point. There are too many spoons in the soup, there are too many cooks in the kitchen, and there are too many projects on the cutting room floor that I just feel like weren't given enough room. Like Realism and Night Vision is a great example of that. Realism is just a mosh pit, and Night Vision's only on like, I think 4 maps? I would like some good, well-balanced ground war maps that aren't just parts of the Spec Ops area converted into multiplayer. I'd like some really good ground war maps that are, again, designed for 64-player content and aren't just sort of allowing 64 players to have combat on it. I feel like Modern Warfare, and I kind of felt this way since the beginning, that Modern Warfare is spread pretty thin, and no matter which dev team handles the Battle Royale mode, you can't tell me that the time, money, and resources that goes into that Battle Royale mode couldn't have gone into the main game that I paid for. And this isn't just because I'm not a fan of Battle Royale. Even though I don't like Battle Royale games and I don't enjoy playing them, this problem that I'm describing has already affected me with Modern Warfare in the sense that with Season 1, they had to put time and money and resources into gunfight maps and ground war and Spec Ops, and then I got 3 remastered maps, two of which being like really not my favorites at all, like Shipment and Vacant. I don't really like them. But whatever, they were free, they don't really take anything away from the game. I'll play a match or 2 on them and then I'll suck it up. But the only real thing that came out of Season 1 that I cared about was the Ram 7, the Holger, and Crash. I don't play Ground War and Gunfight or Spec Ops enough to care about the rest of the content added. It's not for me, and that's fine, not everything needs to be for me. But a Battle Royale mode would just have that same problem where you'd see stuff get added to the Battle Royale mode, you'd see changes to the Battle Royale map, you'd see updates and content releases for it, wondering, okay, but when do I get more 6v6 maps? When do I get more ground war maps? When do I get more gunfight setups? You know, stuff like that is already being felt by the community, where some people don't value some parts of the content because it's not what they like. I don't see how adding a new dev team to work on a separate project or to take the current dev team and spread them even thinner is a good idea. The current game needs work. The current game needs love and attention. We don't need to separate that. In fact, I would hope Activision would just say, Raven, you're helping Infinity Ward, you're helping them with maps and weapons, and you're gonna make sure that content comes out every month and a half. And the last thing I'll say here is, even if you think that most of the Battle Royale map is already in the game as the Spec Ops map, that doesn't mean that it's just going to be a matter of, oh, we flipped the 100-player Battle Royale switch. No, it's gonna be something that requires its own servers, its own support, its own content releases, its own updates in order to keep it alive and well. So, again, you are still spreading the game thinner, spreading the player base thinner, you are taking up time and resources, and that's just not something this game needs. And I hate that I still see people occasionally saying, I can't wait for them to add Battle Royale. Because I'm sorry, That's the last thing this game needs, is another goddamn game mode. I hope I've really cemented in this video that just because it's a different dev team, if it was like a whole different team working on the Battle Royale, that doesn't mean that it's not impacting Modern Warfare. Because the consumer will see it as anything that isn't being given is essentially being taken. And that's not something that Infinity Ward, Activision, or any dev team working on this game needs to worry about. Instead of a Battle Royale mode and the Modern Warfare we already have getting two separate lines of support from two different dev teams, what if the main game everybody bought and paid for got combined support? That's a better option, I think, any way you slice it. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and then staying to this point. If you stayed to this point, type in skeleton in your comments so I'll know you made it to this point in the video. Anyway, I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.